All right, Ascension Sunday. The goal for today is to help you understand what the Ascension is and what the Ascension is not. All right? Because this is a profoundly misunderstood part of our faith, the Ascension of Jesus. So we're going to begin with a short story, a story about my first time as a sassy student causing grief to his teacher. Because that's the kind of story you guys actually want to hear, I realize that. Now, I want it on the record that this was a very rare case for me. I was actually a very respectful child growing up until about 5th or 6th grade when I discovered sarcasm. Before that, though, well before that, I was a first grader going to CCD on Wednesday afternoons at St. Clair's Catholic Church in North Lake, now called St. Teresa of Calcutta of North Lake. And, those Wednesdays were all right. I didn't really understand why I was there completely, but, I was getting the basics down. I may have been making the sign of the cross correctly. I might have been able to name 4 or maybe 5 of the commandments. You get there slow but sure. I enjoyed the stories of Jesus and all that. But one day the teacher made the mistake of trying to explain the Ascension to a class of first graders. And so she said, and so the Ascension is when Jesus went to heaven, body and soul, without dying. And I had a look on my face like that didn't make sense, because it didn't. And I raised my hand, Mrs. Smith, what did that look like? And she said, well, he floated up into the sky on a cloud. And again, respectful child, didn't say anything. But I certainly had a look on my face that spoke volumes of, you just made that up. You aren't fooling this 6-year-old. Just be honest and say you don't know what it looked like. I would have respected that. Now, the funny thing is, 20 years later, I started teaching CCD at that church on Wednesday afternoons, and my first grade religion teacher was still there. And she was delighted to see me. And she said, Justin, I am so glad you're here. I had so many doubts that you'd still be Catholic. Yeah, that was what I thought in my head too. And I go, but what made you think that? And she said it was because I asked too many questions. Anyway, so the Ascension of Jesus. It's tricky business. 6-year-old Justin kind of had a point. Are we really going to believe that Jesus floated into the sky on a cloud? We might be able to pull that off if we believe that heaven was literally in outer space, which we don't. But that's okay. That is not what today is about. It is not. The Ascension of Jesus is far more beautiful than any of that. And to hammer that point home, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our good friend, Pope Benedict XVI. Now, I've quoted Jesus of Nazareth a few times during Lent. You shouldn't quote the same book, too often. I've had this on my shelf specifically for today. I was saving it today because this chapter on the Ascension really is the most helpful one in the book, in my opinion. So I'm going to quote from pages 281, 282, 283, and 289. Don't worry, I'm not reading the whole pages. So, Pope Benedict XVI writes, the joy of the disciples after the Ascension corrects our image of the event. Ascension does not mean departure into a remote region of the cosmos, but rather a continuing closeness that the disciples experience so strongly that it becomes the source of lasting joy. The questioning about times and seasons is explicitly rejected. Speculation over history, looking ahead into the unknown future, these are not fitting attitudes for a disciple. Christianity is in the present. It is both gift and task, receiving the gift of God's inner closeness, bearing witness to Jesus Christ. The language of the cloud is unambiguously theological language. It presents Jesus' departure not as a journey to the stars, but as his entry into the mystery of God. It doesn't refer to some distant cosmic space where God has set up his throne and given Jesus a place by the throne. God is not in one place alongside other places. God stands in relation to all spaces as Lord and Creator. His presence is not spatial, but divine. And then later on he says, so if we understand the ascension like this, we need to be vigilant and open to the good, to the truth, to God, in the midst of an often meaningless world, in the midst of the power of evil. I love that. I love all of that. I couldn't put this book down. I had never learned this idea of the ascension until I read the book. And I only read it 2 months ago. And when I read it, it all clicked into place. All my previous misconceptions got washed away. The disciples were rejoicing at the ascension because they realized they were not saying goodbye to Jesus. They were experiencing Jesus in a new, radically closer way. And they realized that no one is saved by our politics, by our military, or even our ancestry. What God has planned for all of us is more than any of that, and it wouldn't be possible without the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. So today, Ascension Sunday, is one of those days, it's not the only one really, it's one of those days where we remember that Christ is close to us, closer than we could ever understand. Okay? That means he's not just on the road to Emmaus. He's not just in Jerusalem. He's not just in Ohio. He's not floating on a cloud somewhere in the stratosphere, scaring children on planes when they're looking out the window and seeing a man floating in the sky. That's not it. That is not it. Christ is with us always. That is what ascension is about. And that means that we need not look for Jesus in an empty space, but Benedict was saying that, and we need not wait for him to show up at some point in the future. We don't need to do that. He is already here. So please, remember what the ascension is and what it is not. It is not Jesus departing into space. He is not leaving us. That's what 6-year-old Justin thought. What ascension is Christ being with us through every step of our lives. So recall the words that we all say right before we receive communion. O Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under our roof, but only say the word, and my soul shall be healed.